Course, she said, smiling sweetly at me. What's on your mind? I hesitated, unsure of how to phrase my question. But then I looked in her eyes, and I saw something there that made my blood run cold. Mrs. Smith, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to ask you something. Is everything okay? You seem to be really close to the men of the church. Mrs. Smith's smile faltered for a moment, and I saw a flash of something in her eyes. But then she regained her composure, and her smile returned. Oh, I'm just being friendly, she said, waving her hand dismissively. I like to make people feel welcome and included. That's all. I nodded, unsure of what to say next. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part of me was screaming warning signs. I knew I had to dig deeper to find out what was really going on, but as I turned to leave, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Mrs. Smith, her eyes glinting with a knowing look. Wait, she said, her voice low and husky. I think we need to talk more about this. Why don't you come to my house tomorrow night, and we can discuss it further? I felt a shiver run down my spine as I looked into her eyes. What was she really after? And what secrets was she hiding? I knew I had to be careful, but I also knew I had to uncover the truth. I'll be there, I said, trying to sound calm. Mrs. Smith smiled, her eyes glinting with triumph. I'll be waiting, she said. As I walked away, I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was walking into a trap. But I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. When I get home, couldn't concentrate on anything else for the rest of the day. My mind kept wandering back to Mrs. Smith and her mysterious invitation. What did she want to talk to me about? And why did she want to meet at her house? As the sun began to set, I made my way home, my heart racing with anticipation. I tried to distract myself by watching TV and browsing the internet, but nothing seemed to work. My mind was fixated on Mrs. Smith and our upcoming meeting. Finally, the clock struck 9 p.m., and I knew I had to get some rest. I went to bed, but my sleep was fitful. I kept waking up, thinking about Mrs. Smith and what she might have planned. The next day, I woke up feeling anxious and on edge. I tried to calm myself down by praying and reading the Bible, but nothing seemed to work. I knew I had to face whatever Mrs. Smith had in store for me. As the evening approached, I made my way to Mrs. Smith's house. The sky was dark and foreboding, and the air was filled with an eerie silence. I felt like I was walking into a trap, but I steeled myself and rang the doorbell. Mrs. Smith answered the door, looking more beautiful than ever. She smiled warmly and invited me in. I hesitated for a moment, but then I stepped inside.